friends, it's me again. Welcome to chapter 5 of Animal Farm. And so it begins with this image of Molly. And Molly has become troublesome, it says. Remembering that Molly represents materialism, love of luxury. So you can really see this. She's late for work. She oversleeps. She goes to the drinking pool. She goes to get a drink. Doesn't want to do the work. Wants to go get something from her locker. Oh no, she's trying to avoid work. And so we also see here her standing foolishly, gazing at her own reflection. This really emphasizes her narcissism, which is a word that means loving yourself, like an intense love of yourself, in a kind of a negative way. So she's staring at herself in the mirror. And then we discover, so Molly and Clover, who is the other horse, the female horse, says, I saw you talking to a human from another farm and stroking your nose, and what does it mean? And she denies it. She says, no. Molly says it's not true. And then she runs away, and Clover checks her stall and she finds a lump of sugar and several bunches of ribbon from different colours. And then 3 days later, Molly disappeared. Now, I think Molly here represents a defector. And a defector is someone who kind of abandons their country and goes to another country. So people who defected from Russia and tried to get asylum or get safety in America or England or another Western country. And then she is found on another farm. She's got a newly clipped coat, a scarlet ribbon, and she's enjoying herself, and no one ever mentions her again. So she's really seen like a traitor. Like she's abandoned her people. But my question is this a fair kind of assessment of Molly? And is it a fair assessment of people who actually defected from Russia? We can talk about that later. So then it comes that we've gone from summer to January, which will be winter and hard weather. And there's many meetings, and now remember in the last chapters we had this sort of sense of democracy where decisions were made together, they all discussed it, but here it says the pigs, it's decided and accepted that pigs who were manifestly cleverer than the other animals should decide the farm policy, but the decisions had to be ratified by a majority vote. So it wasn't actually talking to each other and discussing together. It was the pigs deciding and then people voting. So that's what happened. So you notice the change from a democratic system to a more autocratic system, although still having some form of vote involved. But there is this power struggle between Snowball and Napoleon. So the system would have worked well, but these two were struggling for power. There were disputes. It says here, disputes between Snowball and Napoleon. And they just disagreed on everything. And each of them had their own followings. And there were some violent debates. It says, Snowball won because of his brilliant speeches, but Napoleon got support in between the meetings. He went around canvassing support, doing the political thing. And he had a lot of support from the sheep. And they would bleat 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. And he would say that like at really important, crucial moments in Snowball's speeches. And I wonder what the sheep represent, and I wondered if they represent naive people who will just not question and do what they're told. I even made a note for myself that maybe they represent stupidity, but to be kind of, I guess more politically correct, was just say that they represent people who don't question and just do what they're told. And so they come up with a number of different schemes. Snowball comes up with schemes. Napoleon just argues against those schemes, but the big one is over the windmill. And so Snowball has this plan of fantastic machines which would do the work for them. He tells them all about how much easier their life will be once they have this windmill, and they have a lot of different machines, and then they can just relax and the machines will do the work for them. Now, this is kind of like the Industrial Revolution, where the factories come up and do the work for them. And so Snowball has these fantastic machines who will do the work for them, where they graze at ease in the fields and they can read and all of that stuff. And so Snowball's trying to show the plans, and they're getting excited, and everyone comes to look at his drawings, Snowball's drawings, and it says here, only Napoleon held aloof. That means stands apart. He was against the windmill from the start, but he came to look at the plans and looked them out of the corner of his eye and just walked away. So the farm, the windmill was really a thing of divisiveness on the farm. They didn't all agree. Snowball said it'll be difficult to build, but it'll also be good because so much labour will be saved that we'd only have to work 3 days a week. Napoleon said, though, if they waste time on the windmill, they'll all starve to death. So there's these slogans, political parties, there's factions, and one was vote for Snowball and the 3-day week, and the other one was vote for Napoleon and the full manger, enough food. Benjamin, who's the old donkey, is the oldest and kind of wisest, although a little bit pessimistic. That means he's got a bit of a negative attitude there. Pessimistic. He says, windmill or no windmill, life would go on always, that is, badly. And then they were also worried about the invasion of the other farms, and Napoleon and Snowball disagree on that too. So we've got these contrasts between them and their stances. One of them says they have to go get firearms and train themselves. And Napoleon says that. Snowball says we got to get to more countries or more farms and get more help and reinforcements. And eventually it comes to this time where windmill's planned, and they having a discussion about it. They're debating it. And Snowball says his reasons, Napoleon says his reasons, and then Snowball gives a passionate appeal in favour of the windmill. And here, in a moment, Snowball's eloquence has carried them away. He painted a picture of Animal Farm when the sordid labour is lifted from the animals' backs. So he's showing how good it would be. He's using his persuasive devices and his techniques and his language choices to make them see that. And Napoleon doesn't like that. And so rather than voting, because if they voted, Snowball would win, Napoleon makes a high-pitched whimper no one had ever seen before. And these 9 dogs come in and they attack. Now, these dogs represent the military arm. Some might call them the KGB, but they're the Russian spies or the special forces who do the bidding of the leader. And so the dogs chase Snowball away. Snowball escapes and is never seen again. In reality, Snowball is actually a guy called Trotsky, Leon Trotsky, and he escapes and hides out in some other countries, but eventually is captured and killed. Assassinated, I believe. Anyway, so these dogs, interesting here, they wag their tails to him the same way as the other dogs used to Mr. Jones. This is probably the first hint that the pigs are becoming like the humans. This point here is like this hint or suggestion. And then they decide that there's no more meetings, no more voting. So instead of having the debate or the voting, the special committee of the pigs would meet privately, and there would be no more debate. So we see it move from discussion, freedom, democracy to like the pigs deciding, but then people being able to vote, and now no more debates. And some people, or some pigs, they call them young porkers in the front row, start to argue, but they sort of start to speak up, but suddenly the dogs sitting around Napoleon growl and everybody is quiet again. So they're afraid of the power, the military power there, and the sheep. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. And so then Squealer comes, and this is one of the first of many times, I think, where Squealer comes around, and he uses his language choices to kind of paint a picture and turn black into white. And so here it is that what a sacrifice Comrade Napoleon has made, and all this extra work. And it's so this idea of we're going to make all the decisions, like it's for your own good. He would be happy to let you make the decisions, but you might make the wrong ones. Okay. And here somebody says, yeah, but Snowball, he fought bravely, he was all right. And now we also start to doubt Snowball's part. Yes. The first hint there that maybe Snowball's role wasn't quite as big as we thought. And here it says, one false step and our enemies would be upon us. Surely, comrades, you don't want Jones back. And there's this implication that if the holding of debates on Sunday mornings was going to bring him back, then the debates must stop. So they're somehow trying to use this false logic that if there's debates, then it would cause Jones to come back. So using people's fear against them to stay in power. And Boxer's maxim, he had, I will work harder. And he added to this, Napoleon is always right. Okay. And interesting here, they take the skull of Old Major, which was buried, and they dig it up and they actually hoist it up and make a statue of it. And it's very interesting because there's lots of statues of communist heroes, and actually the bodies of many of the leaders of the Communist Party were preserved in formaldehyde and can still be viewed today, like 30, 40 years after their death. Chairman Mao from China, Ho Chi Minh from Vietnam, and I do believe Stalin and or Lenin all preserved the bodies with formaldehyde, so they can be viewed today, like a little bit like an altar. Like these people are set up almost like a god in place of a god. Anyway, so here we go. And the seating arrangements in the meeting here, you'll see very different to the beginning. So Napoleon, Squealer, and another pig, Minimus, who we really don't know very much about, but he was good with an artist. They sat on the raised platform, and 9 dogs in a semicircle round them, and other pigs sitting behind them. And facing them are the rest of the animals. Okay, so they used to sit together, but nowadays they did not sit together at all as they had done in the past. And this is certainly symbolic of them going from camaraderie and friendship to different kind of statuses within their animalism. And then Napoleon says he's going to build the windmill after all. And he says actually he was never opposed to the windmill. It was actually his plan that Snowball stole. All seems very unlikely. So I have big question marks here going, huh? Anyway, he only pretended to oppose the windmill to get rid of Snowball. And Squealer says it was about tactics. When they come up with all these questions, they just say tactics. And it says here, Squealer spoke so persuasively, and the 3 dogs who happened to be with them growled so threateningly that they accepted his explanation without further questions. And if you look at the views and values of this text, I really believe that Orwell is encouraging us to question. He's, by having this example of so many things that the reader knows is true, because we read them in black and white that then change, and we can see how the other animals accept them. So this was definitely Snowball's plan, but Napoleon sort of stole it and then said it was his idea, and then the animals accepted. We can see that they accept it without further questions, and by showing these examples, Orwell is really encouraging us to question. He's encouraging the reader to question. Now, in this particular context, it's about questioning the Russian leaders and their role, particularly Stalin, who is represented by Napoleon. But in any situation, it can actually apply larger than that. And I believe Orwell certainly implies that for all of us. So that's chapter 5 for you. That one's a big one. I hope you've stayed with me, and have a lovely, lovely day. Yeah. Off.